I think probably the most requested show for me to watch has been The Boys, and I kept meaning to get to it, just things got in the way. I decided to watch other shows instead, but I finally got around to watching Season 1 of The Boys, and I figured I would do a video for Season 1 because I think it's going to be one of those shows where every single season there's going to be so much information to talk about that if I did a full review of Seasons 1 through 3 that are out now, it would just be like way too much for one video. I don't know if anyone would care to sit around and watch me talk for that long. Maybe you would, I don't know, but, you know, you're weird, so The Boys Season 1. If for some reason you don't know what The Boys is, it is a show that is on Amazon Prime, and it is extremely dark, very adult, so much blood, violence, gore, nudity, sexuality, strong language, drug use. Like, it is a very dark show. And with a lot of superhero media out there, and a lot of them with the evil Superman archetype, sometimes you can feel a little bit burnt out on the genre. And I got to admit, to some degree, I am. However, The Boys is one of those shows that's been talked up to me a lot about people saying how good it is, and I'd heard rumblings of this before, and I actually was kind of aware of the comic book, though I've never read it. I remember people talking about it back in the day. So what is The Boys actually all about? So you live in this world where superheroes are real, they exist, and there's this team called the Seven, which is essentially like the Justice League that exists within the world that go around protecting humanity from various threats that happen throughout the world, saving people, and they are in the limelight. And I think that one of the things that this show really tries to do and really tries to show, and I think the thing that it excels at probably the best, is showcasing the human nature within people with extraordinarily gifted abilities. You know, instead of having like morally upstanding people that want to do good just for good's sake, I think it is one of those cases where if you have power, it tends to corrupt, and if you have ultimate power, it tends to corrupt ultimately. And it seems to be that no matter what good intentions you may go into something with, eventually that corruption will hit you. And it also talks about how people are perceived. And in this world, the superheroes are essentially like celebrities. They are on magazines, they're selling action figures, they're going to rallies to help, you know, lift people up and everything. There's this big, like, there's like a 2-episode event where it's this big, like, Christian concert event thing with Homelander there with his, like, American cape get up and everything. And so, you know, it is one of those things where image is very, very important. And I started thinking about, you know, how this show is like relating to what is happening right now, basically like with the internet and society, social media and everything. And everything is about image. It's not about what the person actually does behind the scenes. In fact, it gets to the point where like you're not supposed to know what somebody does behind the scenes. All you're supposed to know is the archetype of the person. And that's essentially what the Seven are. They are the archetype of like the Justice League, of what you would think of superheroes, but really they're just regular people who happen to have extremely powerful abilities. They work for organizations that organize where they go, when they go. It's a whole PR department that is behind the entire thing. You know, they orchestrate things so that they can go and then look even more heroic than they were before, and everything is planned, everything is by design. And because of that, you have these people that are sort of living in luxury, that are looked up as heroes, as they are, as superheroes, and also just as this celebrity unit that they are. And it's all fake, and it's all a facade, and everybody in this show essentially is an asshole to some degree. Like, everyone's a dick. Almost everyone's a dick. And even the people that aren't really dicks, they're still kind of dicks, like in their own way. Like there's dicks everywhere in this show. There's a dick in the first episode, the Invisible Man. You see his dick. Translucent, I think, is the character's actual name. But you see his dick in the first episode, and it just lets you know this is the world that we live in. It also shows the realism of not only if superheroes actually existed in the real world, not only would we look up to them as idols, even if they do really dark and shady things behind the scenes. You know, Watchmen touched on this as well, but also this show really shows the devastation that superheroes could cause. Like, imagine if somebody with super strength actually punched somebody in the face who's a regular human. What would happen? You know, it's not like, oh, they just get knocked out. No, your head obliterates and bursts into pieces. In the very first episode, the ball gets rolling with this guy named Huey, who is a great character. He's just like your regular, everyday, average Joe character, which I love having, like, a regular dude within a series that has a bunch of fantastical things, they tend to always be my favorite character. I just really like the idea of all these kind of crazy things happening around them, but they're just like, I'm just a regular guy. You know, they're not even like military trained, or they're not trained martial artist or some sort of tech genius. Like they're just a dude, right? So in the very first episode, the guy that has super speed, he completely like just running through the city, just runs through Huey's girlfriend. Like literally runs through her. Like imagine something is going like 10,000 miles per hour, maybe faster, I don't know. And he just collides with this woman, and just the speed, force, and intensity of that she just explodes like jelly. Like her blood goes everywhere, and he is covered in blood, and he's just like, oh, sorry, man, and he gets out of there. And the first thing they do is they try to cover it up so that it's not a big PR event. So they decide to pay Huey off. They like sign this disclosure so you won't talk about it. And it just like fuels the realism of the series, because that seems like something that would actually happen. Like if superheroes really exist and there was that collateral damage that happened, that they would just sort of write it off and sweep it under the rug. And this happens all the time. This happens with politicians. This happens with celebrities. They do horrible shit, and it's just sort of like, we're just gonna kind of like, we'll pay off the people so they don't talk about it. We're just kind of like, it's whatever. And it's the lack of empathy that like A-Train had also. Like he didn't care. He met with the dude to say sorry simply because they forced him to, and then in a later episode, he didn't even recognize the guy when he met him again. And that's the thing, is that they're viewing regular people as just things to help propel them up in society, but not something that they actually legitimately care about. It's just sort of like a means to an end. Like I save people, and it doesn't even make them feel good about themselves to save people. What makes them feel good is the PR of the photo shoot afterwards, and the Instagram post afterwards, and the party afterwards, and all of the publicity and fame that they get for doing that thing rather than doing the actual thing. And it's interesting because with some of the characters, you can see that that's how it started. And it's kind of like everything, you know, when you get corrupted in life and when you get like too much money and fame and power, like it allows you to access, you know, those darker places of yourself because there's nobody there to really stop you. But you see with some of the characters that like when they started being a superhero, when they started being in the Seven, they maybe did have good intentions and they maybe did get a sense of fulfillment out of saving people. But as time goes on, it just becomes more and more superficial. But then on the other side of the superheroes, you have the boys, or what will be referred to as the boys, which is just a group of regular people. Now, some of them are a little bit more skilled than others. There is like the tech skill guy, and there is Billy Butcher, who is the main, basically like the leader of the group, who is orchestrating this entire thing. And he has a history with these superheroes as well, where his wife went, or maybe just his girlfriend, I can't remember if they were married, but she went missing like 7 or 8 years ago. He knows that she was in contact with Homelander. There was a video footage of, it looks like Homelander like took her into his bedroom, things happened, then she seemed to disappear. So he's out for these superheroes. He's out to take them down. He's the one that gets Huey involved so that he can track down one of the first ones, which is Translucent. Probably physically the weakest, but extremely hard to kill because his skin, you know, is like impenetrable. But they find a way to do it because they shove a bomb up his ass. That's the show. So essentially you have this group of characters that want to take down the superheroes, but they're all regular humans. They don't have any powers or abilities themselves, with the exception of Karen Fukuhara's character, Kimiko, I believe is her name, correct? Yeah, that they find, and she's mute, she can't talk, but she has super strength, and when they let her out of her cage, she just like completely like eviscerates a dude, like rips out his guts and organs and everything, and so they're like, oh, okay, let's hope she doesn't kill us, but she could be very useful to us as well. So she kind of joins the crew, is unable to communicate verbally, but she does have these like little moments that you can tell she's coherent and that she's listening and that she knows kind of what's going on. So interesting character. I'm interested to see what happens with her as the series progresses. But even in this group of characters of the boys, some of their methods are not exactly let's say the kindest, right? So like there's a lot of characters in this show that are straight up assholes. Whether or not they have reasons to be, that is true, But even, these characters, it's sometimes hard to find the characters to root for because you see that darkness within everybody. And I think that's part of the point of the show too. I think the point of it is just to see, how far people can fall when they're pushed to that degree. And Billy Butcher is a perfect example of that. He's got a lot of defense mechanisms. He's very brash. He makes decisions very quickly. He doesn't exactly communicate the best. He's, you kind of don't know if he's really telling the truth or not. So he's just that guy because he has this ultimate vendetta, this ultimate vengeance that he's looking to rectify with taking Homelander down and taking all of the superheroes down with him. So spoilers, if you haven't watched The Boys season 1, so I'm going to get into a lot of spoilers here, but there's a couple of things that were interesting to note as the series went forward. So number one is that how do people get superpowers in this universe? Well, apparently there is a drug that they give them as children that allow them to develop powers later. So the entire thing has been orchestrated basically by the government in order to do this, or by the vote industries, whatever that's meant to represent. So all of this is a lie. All of these special, you're chosen by God, yada, yada, but that's how they want it to be perceived by the masses. So that's the whole thing, is that there's this idea of perception versus the idea of reality and what people aren't aware of. So they find out that this drug exists. Apparently, if you continuously take this drug, you do get more powerful, but it is sort of like a metaphor for drug addiction and what that does to people and how that happened with A-Train. And another woman who takes way too much of it and she winds up crushing a dude's face with her asshole. And you know what? All things considered, if I look at every single death in this entire series, and there's so much death in this series, if I look at every single death, that's probably the way I would want to go. So if everything is orchestrated and everything is created, then we have to talk about Homelander, all right? And I really want to talk about Homelander because before going into this series, Homelander was the character I had heard the most about. And you know that the evil Superman trope is pretty much everywhere. They did it very, very, very well in Invincible with Omni-Man, and I think that is still my favorite version of the evil Superman archetype. But Homelander has been talked up to me a lot, and I know that there's 3 seasons to develop his character for him to get, as menacing as he possibly can. Because imagine there really is a Superman that exists out there that can be at your doorstep in 0.2 seconds, that can just rip your face in half with 2 fingers if you wanted to, use laser eyes to obliterate you. There's nothing you could do. He could legitimately take over the entire world. But the thing, I was conflicted. I don't even know how to describe it. I was so conflicted because, number one, there is a scene where Homelander and the Wonder Woman girl, I can't remember her superhero name, but they're in the plane that's being, there's hijackers on the plane, and they come in, they kill the hijackers, and, everyone on the plane is happy, and they're grateful, and they're all congratulating them, and they're all stoked that the superheroes are saving their lives. But then when he goes to attack the final hijacker, he accidentally kills the pilot also. So they decide, best thing to do, there's no way to save everybody. Homelander's like, I'd have to take everyone off one by one. That's annoying. She's like, stop the plane. He's like, I couldn't stop the plane. There's nothing to push off against, which is funny that they're adding in actual real life physics within the superhero world, which I love that they're doing. And that's the whole point of when super speed goes through a person, they explode, so you've seen in Superman movies, he's able to stop the plane, but he can control himself in the air, and Homelander's like, well, I could grab the plane, but there's nothing beneath my feet to push off against, so what am I going to do? Which is probably a lie, actually, when I really think about it. But and so there's this really tragic moment where he's just telling everyone, oh, you're going to be okay, don't worry, we got this, we're going to save you, as he's walking towards the exit of the plane. And he's just like, it's all right, you're fine. And it's just it's a really heartbreaking and terrifying scene because, you're looking, if a godlike character came into your plane that's going down to save you, you have this, it's like having Jesus right in front of you, right? You're like, oh my God, save me. And then he just is patting everybody on the head and then walking back to the back of the plane to leave. And it's just such a heartbreaking, terrifying moment. And so that makes you really kind of scared of Homelander and the things that he not only can do, but having that lack of with great power comes great responsibility, with no responsibility, where he doesn't even feel bad that he has the power to help, but just refuses not to. But besides that, I really wanted Homelander to be terrifying. Like, I wanted him to feel like a global threat. I wanted him to feel like just beneath the surface, if one little thing goes wrong, or if he just gets pissed off just enough, like, it could be absolutely devastating for so many people. And they have so many scenes with him with this older woman named Madeline, who sort of like mothers him. And it just was a real, like, I just was not, with as much as Homelander was talked up. And like, I'm not like, I'm going to come back around to this. So just bear with me. Just let me get through this. As much as Homelander was talked up, by so many people before I watched the show, to see Homelander cradle up in this like old lady's lap and like suck on her tit and like wanted his head to be pet and everything, like he's some good little boy. I just wondered like why they chose that direction, like why they chose to make him like a little bit of a mama's boy and like, listening to everything that she says and going to her for comfort and everything. And I get it's humanizing to a degree, but at the same time, I just was not expecting them to do that with that archetype of a character. So it just really like threw me off base. But then in the final episode, I felt a little bit more satisfaction as Homelander was taking more agency over himself and not allowing this person to control him and baby him anymore. And then he heat visions like her brain out of her skull. And I was like, as wanting him to be the most diabolical villain that you could possibly have. Like, I was looking forward to Homelander just being like an absolute menace, man. And I was a little bit disappointed by like how much he was being babied and how much he was complying to everything this woman was telling him to do and how much he was obeying and stuff. And I'm like, with his, with his power, like with what he can do, like, he should be wreaking havoc on everybody that, disregarded him his entire life. Like, everyone that treated him like a little lab rat. Like, I guess there's Stockholm Syndrome. Like, you're still kind of, like, going along with it. If it's just something you're used to, like, that's how you would control somebody who's that powerful. So, like, I get it. But seeing him actually take his own agency back and not allow that to be the case and not allowing himself to be controlled anymore and not allowing, that to really bother him. She's strapped with bombs, like he doesn't even care. He takes care of it first before Billy Butcher can. And it's just like, that's finally, like in the season finale, I finally got the villainous Homelander that I wanted. I want this guy to be like completely out of control. Like I want this guy to be the absolute terrifying menace that everyone has talked him up to be. And I think that is what it's leading towards season 2 and into season 3. So I was super stoked about that. I'm glad it came around. If it would have ended season 1 with him just like obeying her, Madeline, I think her name was, just obeying her the entire time, I would have been super annoyed. There's also so many great other characters to talk about. There's Starlight, and she decides to join the Seven in the beginning of the season, believing them to be the superheroes that they are. And then obviously what happens with her in the Deep was like disgusting. And so she's sort of like conflicted because it's something she's wanted. She's got this status. She's got this place, in the throne room of the Seven, but she understands the reality of what's happening here, and she's trying very, very hard to fight against it while still being a part of it. So still being within the group, but trying to do something good. And she's also connected to Huey, which I wasn't sure how I felt about their relationship, since Huey's entire motivation was because of his girlfriend being killed. So him jumping into bed with Starlight, I don't know. Then again, looking at Starlight, I'm like, well, I get it. So it is what it is. But it would be really interesting if she does sort of convert over to the side of the boys, because then you would have 2 superpowered characters on that team. But then again, maybe it would take away from the point of like, these are just regular dudes just trying to take down superheroes. So if you balance the superpowers on both sides, does it become a little bit not what it's supposed to be anymore? I don't know. But all things considered, I definitely enjoyed season 1. It didn't blow me away. It didn't become like my favorite show or anything, but I know it gets better as it goes along, and I'm excited for season 2 and season 3. I've heard very, very good things about where the show goes, so I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a heads up on where I'm at with the show. Finished season 1, very much enjoyed it, excited to go to season 2. So if you guys have been watching The Boys, what did you think about just season 1? try not to spoil anything in the comments for me if you can. I've seen, here and there spoilers online, but try not to. And I'm going to get to season 2 and season 3 as quick as I can. I might do a combined review, or maybe I'll just do a review of season 2. I'm not really sure how I'll do it, but you guys let me know what you want. Other than that, guys, thanks a lot for watching this video. Do appreciate it. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. All interaction will help it be seen in the algorithm better. So anything you can do, like, comment, sharing, all that stuff helps me out. If you guys want to help the channel out on that deeper level, if you check the description below, I do have a Patreon and merch store. Patreon has a bunch of perks associated with it as well. So all that's there. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you next time.